Superior attack!
Welcome back to Superior Tech. That whole math joke shtick, I don't think we're going to continue to do that. That's too much pressure, and there's too many characters. I just can't do it. So, without any further ado, I am Respecugnize, and this is May. So, May here. May is a story-eyed dreamer. You gotta love her enthusiasm and positivity. Only second to Lucio, I suppose. But let's go ahead and get into it. So May is on the defensive side of the characters, although I will say that I've seen some pretty good May players and they will wreck you. Yeah, she is defensive, but man, as far as crowd control, she is she's a frost wizard. I mean, that's it, right? Or whatever is in the tree for World of Warcraft now, because I'm really out of that game and I know there's been a bunch of changes, but yeah, she's basically a frost wizard and does a lot of crowd control and is amazing if you can play her correctly. If not, you play her like me. So I have a big relativity issue with the character in that when I do things, it doesn't seem to work at the same speed as everyone else, and we'll get to how that works and what I'm talking about. So let's start. On primary fire, we have the endothermic blaster. It is a beam weapon. It does 45 damage per second, which equates out to 2.25 per round. There is 20 meters per second movement on the beam. The maximum range is 10 meters, and there is 200 ammo. Let's call it milliliters because it's a liquid. I mean, there's liquid in that gun. We'll call it 200 milliliters. Let's do it that way. It has a reload time of 1.5 seconds. The duration is 1.5 seconds when you're freezing and 1 second when they're actually frozen. It will not headshot. So it is a beam weapon, and it comes out like that. And because of its speed, you can see that arc on it when you're moving. You are going to have to lead the target a little bit to make sure that it's staying on them, which I may not have down as well as other players that I know and play well, and other players I know who play well with her. So on the secondary fire, there's Icicle. It is a linear projectile. The damage is between 22 and 75 because there is fall off damage. That fall off range is 26 to 45 meters. It is pinpoint, so there's no spread. It moves at 120 meters per second. It fires at 1.2 shots per second, and that includes the build-up time for it, and we'll see that when we shoot it. It pulls from the same ammo as the primary fire, and it is 20 ammo per shot, so it doesn't work quite the same. It takes more ammo. The other one's 2.26 and this one is 20. The reload time is 1.5 seconds and the casting time is 0.4 seconds because it does have that that timing in it, but it will headshot. So we can see that's what I mean with the timing. The thing has to freeze and you can hear it and see it come out the front of the gun, and then it fires. But it will headshot. So on the left shift is cryo freeze. It is a self buff. That's what we'll call it. It actually heals May 37.5 hit points per second, and if you let it go for its full duration, it will go for 150. The full duration will take 4 seconds and is on a 12-second cooldown because it makes her invulnerable and heals her, which would be crazy if you could just spam the thing, right? So you simply hit left shift. She's going to pop into it, and either button will cancel it. And that's that. That brings us to Ice Wall, which is on E. It is a 3x8 ice wall that pops up. It has 500 horse. Oh, 500 horse. I always do that. It's HP because I'm a car guy. But it's 500 hit points per pillar, and there's 5 pillars. The maximum range is 35 meters, and the duration is 4.5 seconds. You can cancel the ice wall at any time. The ice wall will be destroyed if someone shoots at it because it has health, and it will not stop any of the trolleys, carts, or whatever you want to call it. And it has a cooldown of 10 seconds. So what you do is you're going to press E, and it's going to toggle out. You can see we get some pretty good distance out of it. And also, if you hit E again, it's going to change the orientation, either perpendicular or parallel. So you just press that, they're going to pop up. As you can see, there's 5 pillars, and if I press E again, it'll go away. If people shot that and got the health done, it would also go away. That brings us to ult, which is Blizzard. It is amazing. I guess because it has the same name as the company, you would do so. But it is an arcing projectile type initially when it comes out, and then once it hits the ground, it's going to AoE. It's 97 damage over the duration. The area of effect is 10 meters in a perfect bubble. The casting time is 1.5 seconds. If you're throwing it like at your feet, it'll be 1.5. But because it has to move away from her in an arc, then that cast time may vary because it actually has to hit the ground before it's going to take effect. So if you throw it like way in front of you, or you throw it into a hole or off of a tier, it's going to be a little different. The duration is 5 seconds. It will not headshot. It takes 1,437.5 to get the ult up, and she charges 1% ult every 2.875 seconds if you're passive. So we'll go down and look at some of this really quickly. So looking at it with the cryo freeze, I'm gonna show you the arcing of it. See, you have to control that arc on there. Basically, you have to kind of get a feel for where the character is going to be, because as you're freezing them, they are going to slow down. So my suggestion is you start to use your WASD keys, WASD, your keys that allow you to move around. What you need to do is constantly adjust that. So instead of using your mouse from left to right like this to do it, you can simply start using the WASD keys. Also, because it is a beam weapon and because you don't want to sit there in front of enemy guns just like that, you're going to need to adjust for jumping, which isn't very hard because the area of effect for that beam is actually not 100% on. See, I'm not shooting that and directly at it. I'm off to the side, and it's using what we call cleave, and I go over cleave as a technical aspect of the game in the Mora video because her beam is a very good example. Almost everything she has as far as the healing things, so like her biotic grasp and also her ultimate also use cleave, so that's a good example. So as you see, when you're freezing the enemy character, they're going to start to slow down, and if you can hold it on there for 1.5, they are actually going to freeze. That gets into that comment I made about relativity. Whenever I'm trying to freeze an enemy character, it just seems like it takes forever for me to do it, but whenever I'm going up against a really good Mei player, it almost seems like I'm being frozen immediately. So there are some things about the freeze. If you use a movement ability, it will actually get you out of the freeze. So Doomfish using Rocket Punch and things like that, Mora's Fade, etc., will get you out of the freeze. So keep that in mind if you are playing Mei and you're picking a target that you want to actually freeze. If they do not have abilities on cooldown, then they will be able to get out of it, and that may cause you a problem. So ultimately what you want to do with this is not just sit there and freeze a character. because that's not very time efficient. And at 250 hit points, if you're sitting out there freezing, you're probably going to get picked off by someone else. At 250, one of the bread and butter combos from Brigitte will kill you. The bread and butter from McCree, meaning like a flashbang, headshot, fan the hammer, roll, fan the hammer will definitely kill you. Things like that. So most combinations from characters, a hook shot, point blank, shotgun, and a punch from Roadhog, things like that. The basic kits combos, the bread and butter combos from most characters are going to kill her at 250. So you don't want to be standing out in the open. So instead, what you want to do is you pick a target, you're going to freeze it, and get that headshot. So Mei is an audible character. You're going to have to listen to it. Once again, when they actually freeze, that's a bad example. See, it has that cracking sound when they actually freeze. So I would not suggest trying to count 1.5 seconds in your head. Just listen for that, and you can see that there's a little bluish white ring that pops around the character right there when they're frozen. And we'll show it again right there. So that's what you're going to be going for. Speaking of the audible, we see the same thing on Cryo Freeze, and we'll show proof of concept here. Getting hit. That pop sound, that is a audible cue. So the same thing, if you're just watching all the videos to learn all the characters, and you're also learning how to defeat the characters by learning them, then what I do when I see a Mei go into cryo freeze is I'm listening for this sound right here. That crescendo lets me know that she's about to come out. Because of that, and I promise you I'm not the best player, so other players know it too, you can cancel that at any time. Now, you won't get the full health out of it, but what you won't have is someone like a Doomfist sitting there charging his fist using that 2 seconds to get that full hit, knowing that you're going to come out and get you. It's going to stop one of those hit scan high damage characters, like let's say a Widowmaker or a McCree, from knowing that you're about the same height as this. So her head's right between that circle. If you look at her head was going to be right. It's on cooldown. So her head is about at the top of that ice block. See? And from the back of her parka there to the top of her head is, or the top of her hair is all her hitbox for her head. She has a relatively large head in the game. A McCree player or a Widowmaker is going to, if you stay in that 4 seconds, I have all day to line up that headshot. And the second I hear that coming out of it, I'm going to shoot, pink, and that's it. Especially if you're a Widowmaker, because she gets 1.5 times bonus for crit on a headshot, whereas everyone else gets a lower number. So going to the E, where she makes her ice wall. Ice wall has the ability to completely shut down a game. It's one of the few, including the Earth Shatter and the whole hog, that allows a character to completely stop the other team from winning. So there's really only 2 modes outside of deathmatch. There's the one where you have a point that has to be controlled, and it's going to have a it has edges just like this. Let's say this is a control point. If the enemy heroes are here at the end of the game, it goes into overtime. And if they're here at the end of the game, they lose. If it goes into overtime and they're here, it's going to continue to tick down. And if they wipe your team, if you're on defense, then they win. If they go into overtime and they all get wiped and they're all on this side of it, then they lose. So this right here, the ability to put a wall up at the last second, allows Mei to single-handedly win the game. Roadhog can do it, Mei can do it. You can do it with Reinhardt, and you can do it with Winston. All of them have the ability, those other characters have the ability to do it with ults. Mei has the ability to do it with a basic talent, which is amazing. The thing about it, going through the other tech for it, the wall will allow you to pick up enemies or fellow heroes. This is 8 meters up, and so it will allow you to get to places that you normally wouldn't be able to get, including yourself. You can just time it, put it under your feet, and see if that was a little lower, I'd be able to get under there. So the other tech for it is those pillars are physical objects, and so they take up space. Normal characters can break only one of these and get through, but D.Va and Reinhardt, being very large tanks, they actually have to break 2 of those to get through. You keep that in mind. Also, that it will not block a cart on escort. As soon as the cart touches it, it will immediately go down. So that will bring us to the ult, because we haven't seen it yet. You press Q. She's going to throw out her little friend that's on her back. I can't remember his name, like the little robot there. But it arcs out. Once it hits, it's going to just create this area of effect. You can see the ring, just like most ults that have an area of effect. It shows it to you and it shows it to the enemy. But you just throw it out. It's going to go in front of her. You'll have to get the trajectory correct. One of the cool things about it is that it will go through a barrier and a shield. So Reinhardt, things like that, it's not just going to bounce off of that and like stop there. It's going to go through it. It'll actually break it and go onto the ground behind them or in them or beside them. But with that concept of bouncing, you have to be careful, because Genji is able to deflect it. So if you shoot it and the Genji's there, he can turn it on your team. But you basically want to wait till you can affect as many characters as possible. You throw that Q, and there it is. Now in the meantime, they're getting slower. You can actually speed up that freezing with your endothermic blaster, because the game is tracking how many ticks of, I guess we'll just call it cold. It's calculating how many ticks in seconds or portions of a second that you're getting, and it does stack. So you can pick one of the bigger characters that you need to get frozen immediately, because once they're frozen, they cannot actually use their movements and they cannot use their abilities. So you want to pick a character to stop them, I guess, from popping an ult. Something like stopping a McCree with a high noon, stopping a D.Va from going into self-destruct and things like that. So yes, she is listed under defense, and that's the reason why she is, because she does have the ability. And I guess I could have shown it up here. This was a better thing to show it on, because right here, if we've got that epic music going at the end of the game, you know, the one I'm talking about, that signals everyone that they need to get it together and get on the point or do whatever they need to do to win the game. If we're ticking on those last seconds and the enemy team is running to get to this point and you are on the other side, that's the end of the game right there. I mean, just no need to time an ult or anything. And because that ice wall does have that duration of 4.5 seconds, it only takes 1 second. All right, it takes a fraction of a second to lose a game on a control point, and that's it. The other thing you can do is use it to troll and annoy your teammates, which I hate. Lots of times that's just something that people will do, is they're just going to use that ice wall. You know, the same thing, we're running to get out of here and Mei ha ha ha, and then no one can get out of there. Also, defensively, the ice wall can be used to stop things like the ults from characters. I'm looking at D.Va there. It is a great way to stop the mech from actually getting to your team. That in addition to cryo freeze, even though it's smaller, that footprint, it will actually block what we will call line of sight from the self-destruct from Diva. So you can use either to stop that. Earth Shatter, I haven't tested yet, but I'm thinking that Ice Wall will most likely stop the Shatter. I know that it will stop, the Cryo Freeze will stop the Earth Shatter from getting to a character that is behind you, and it will not affect you while you have it. The other thing is you cannot be knocked back while you're in it, and you can't be hooked out of it once you're in it either. So, very good character, and you have to work on your timing. That is the learning curve for her. You will use the E and the left shift in combination and watch the cooldowns to make sure that you're survivable. And it's all about building that ult, because throwing it out, that's the other thing. You can use her ult with that crowd control, the same thing. You'd be able to throw it here and just let it sit. There's no way they can get around it, and the bubble extends up, so it can also catch Pharah off guard. Sometimes they'll think a Pharah player will think that she's too high up to get hit with it, but she will and freeze. So that is Mei in the nutshell. If I've made any errors or overlooked anything important, then send me one of those M's, the PMs, TMs, IMs, IMDBs, all. Send me one of those. Let me know. I will try to get in Most Ricky Tick and do an update. The same thing if they do a patch. This character was patched a couple of months ago, and so I kind of waited on that to make sure that there was no secondary changes or anything before I wasted everyone's time making a video and had to go back in. So yeah, just give me the information and let me know. I'll come back in, make the change, and update it so that everyone can stay current. But be patient. I am not the best at the game. I'm just trying to get there. Have fun, guys.
Respecugnize game when I get on the move. Respecugnize game on Twitch and YouTube. Respecugnize, we the cool for the new and old school. I'ma show you how to do it when I do it so smooth. Respecugnize the truth, respecugnize the new online game time. Game on 2 group. Overwatch the PUBG, shooter stats.